Hi there, welcome to my very first Photoshop tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to have a look at creating a long shadow in Photoshop. And the idea is to create this in a non-destructive way so that you can use it and store it as a template and simply update the text afterwards. So let's get into this. The first thing I've done already is I have already created a background, solid color background, and I've also got a text layer. Text layer just consists of two different font sizes, small font saying long shadow and then larger letters saying Photoshop. Now what we need to do first of all is right click this text layer and select duplicate layer. Click OK. The reason I'm doing this is because our initial text layer is going to become the black long shadow. It means once that is created, we need the original text to kind of still be there, because when you switch that on, we will have this same white text we're seeing now on top of that black long shadow. Now since we don't need that right now and we want to see what we're doing with the black long shadow, I'm going to hide the copy layer. Now let's select the initial text layer. In order to make this long shadow, we're basically going to extrude the shape that you see here. Each letter here is a shape, and we're going to extrude all of them. Okay, so with that layer selected, we're going to go up to 3D, select new 3D extrusion from selected layer. Photoshop's going to ask you, do you now want to go into 3D workspace? We're going to say no. Reason is because we're simply extruding this text but still maintaining 2D. Okay, we're still going to be using this in 2D. So I'm just going to say no. Now for those of you familiar with applications like Blender and SketchUp and Maya and 3ds Max, you might find this a bit familiar. You can see we are in a 3D view, and as with those applications, you're seeing a 3D grid, which is clearly, giving you perspective and 3D space, the entire vibe. Of course, at the top left, we also have a small insert window providing different other views. Currently, it's in the top view, and that's fine. We're not really going to make use of this, so that's fine. You can see in this window here in the 3D tab that Photoshop has taken quite a bit of action here to create all of this. Okay, you can see up here there's a light. You can see we do have shadows and things like that. Now, a lot of this we're not going to need, but we'll take care of that in a second. So what I want you to do is click on Long Shadow Photoshop, okay, or whatever your text. If you're following along in your own file, this may be something different. Okay, but you can see the little T icon, 3D T, which means that this was the text. So with that selected, we're going to click on the Properties tab. Now in this Properties tab, since this is going to become the long shadow, we don't need it to catch shadows and cast shadows. Okay, so I'm going to uncheck these two. And you can see here we have an extrusion depth slider. Now if I move this a little bit, you can see that I'm extruding the text further or making it shallower, and you can see this updating in the top view as well. Now I'm going to actually on purpose keep this low for now because I want you guys to see what we're doing. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is click on the second icon in the Properties tab, which is the Deform. Okay, I'm going to click in there. Now there's some pretty cool stuff here if I am to wet your taste buds a little bit. If you look at the Twist slider here, for example, if I move this a little bit, look at that. Hey, how cool is this? The entire extrusion is being twisted. Okay, but that is not for this tutorial, so let's go back to 0. Okay, what I'm going to do next is move down a little bit. You'll see we have two radio buttons here. There's Bend and Shear. I'm going to set it to Shear, and then we're going to play with our angles a little bit. So I have horizontal angle on the x-axis and vertical angle on the y-axis. Now if I start moving this y angle, you can see how this text is starting to rotate up, or shear up I should say. Okay, because remember we're on shear. Now I'm going to set this to 90. Okay, so now you can see this is actually, oops, this is actually completely gone flat and it's shearing up. Okay, then horizontal angle here, let's start moving that. Okay, so that's swinging this way. Now if I want this to go down this way, the long shadow, which this is becoming, okay, I clearly want to go 90 plus another 45. Okay, so I'm going to set this to 135. Okay, so with these angles set up now, the next thing we'll need to do is look at this straight from the front again, and then extend this in such a way that it basically goes outside of our frame. Now, I try to always not move the 3D camera. If you have, however, moved it, you're going to have to go back to your 3D tab, go all the way down, and just click on default camera. Okay, this resets back to the camera, and be sure to go up again, click on the long shadow text, and go to properties again. Otherwise the properties you're looking at would not be for the text. You have to select the text first. Okay, now back in the, well, actually we don't need to go back into deform, we could do this right here. So now that we're looking at this from the front, I need to extend this extrusion. So I'm going to slide the extrusion depth slider until this goes outside of my frame. There we go. Now, if you're like me and you may want to use this later on again for some other sort of design, remember I said this is a template, okay? You might as well go ahead right now and extend this really far. Okay, so I'm going to put it to 1500. Now, at this point, what I've seen a lot of other tutorials do, including Piximperfect, is that at this point he would control click this layer to get this selection. Then he would get rid of this layer and he would create a new layer where he would just paint bucket black into this selection. Now remember, we're working in a non-destructive way here, so I don't want to follow that route. The way I do it is quite different. I'm going to press Ctrl D to deselect. What I would do next is, for this layer, I'll go and add another adjustment layer. I will select levels. Now if I start changing this, you'll see that it affects the background as well. So I need to clip it only to that long shadow layer beneath it, this layer. And I'm going to take this slider all the way down, because now I've got my black long shadow. Okay. Now I'm going to hold Control and also click the long shadow layer. So I've got both of these selected. I'm going to press Ctrl G to group it. Double click this. I'm going to call this long shadow. Okay, now remember that copy we made of the original white text. I'm going to switch that visibility on now. And there we go. So this is the first phase. You could keep it like this if you like. I like a little bit more realism, so I like a bit of a fade in the black long shadow. And this is also part of why I put these two in a group, you know, the levels layer and the long shadow. I put them in a group because now in this group I could go and add a layer mask. I can go to my gradient tool, and with my foreground background color set to white, I could actually look at presets, and I'm going to use this first one here. So with my black and white gradient, I could actually draw gradient now in this layer mask. Let's go something like that. Okay, that looks pretty nice, right? But I don't like the angle. I personally don't like the angle. Another thing I don't like too much about this is that I want black shadow around all the letters. So this fade, this gradient is happening too soon here. Okay, so this is my big problem with doing the gradient at an angle. So I'm going to press Ctrl Z to undo, and I like to do it straight up. Now I could actually zoom out just a tad more and then do my gradient here. That looks much better, doesn't it? This looks much better. I prefer this. Okay, so that is it done. That would basically be phase 2. Okay, so if this is how you like it, then you're done. Let me take you one step further and explain why I say this would be basically a template and non-destructive. Let's say you've saved this design and you open this later on. You want to update your text to say something different. Now, obviously, we got text in here in the long shadow, but we've also got text on top, this white text on top. So what I want to do is, let's just hide this text so you don't get confused. You can see that this is still following our previous text, right? So I'm going to open up this group. I'm going to double click this icon here with the text layer. Okay, double click that just to get back into these 3D tab and the properties tab. Okay, so my text is still selected from before. If it's not, just make sure that you select this. Then go into the properties tab. Now in the properties tab, down here you have an edit source button. I want to click on edit source. You'll see that Photoshop opens another window with that original text layer. So I want to click on this text layer. Let's just change this. I'm going to say updated long shadow and click accept. Now for this to update in the original design, I have to save this. Okay, so I'm going to click file, save, or you can do Control S. Okay, that's saved. So I'm going to close this. Back to the original design, you can see that our shadow has updated. And this is exactly what we want, right? Now, if I switch the text back on, text on top, that still hasn't updated. I so wish that Photoshop would do something like After Effects where you have one layer that you could pre-compose basically, because then your text would be one layer and you can just reference it in your long shadow and as just text. That'd be awesome. Anyway, so on this text layer, because of what I've just done, my text tool is already active. I'll click in here and I need to type the same thing now. So I'll say updated, oops, don't do that, long shadow, and accept this. Cool, there we have it, updated. Okay, do you see how easy this is and how this could serve as a template? So, you know, it'll cause you to have consistency, because remember, you don't want to reuse this all the time and yet your angle is different for every image you do. You know, when you design things, you need to have some consistency and direction all the time. There needs to be consistency. So what I'm going to do now is, let's say we want to change the background. Now I'm going to show you how cool this looks because we've done a fade on the shadow. Okay, let's say this background of the blue. Okay, I'm going to select that because when I paste a new layer here, I want it to paste above this. So what I've done is I've got another picture open here, which I've downloaded from Unsplash, and we're going to use this one to just replace the background. Now just pay attention to this. The original template design is 1200 by 600 pixels. This image here, I on purpose actually made it bigger. It's 1300 by 867. So what I'm going to do is I'm not gonna drag this over to the template. I'm also not going to just copy paste it. Okay, we're going to copy paste just slightly differently. So what I'm going to do is in this window, I'm going to press Ctrl A to get my marquee around everything, to select all, and then I'm going to press Ctrl C to copy. I'm going to go into my original design or template, and with this background layer selected, if I now paste, I'm going to paste that layer, that new layer of that background I just copied, in between my group and my current background layer. However, we're not going to just paste it because we want it to be placed center in this entire canvas. Even though it's bigger, it needs to be placed center. So I'm going to go to Paste Special and say Paste in Place. Now there is a shortcut for that as well. I just wanted to show you this in the window here. So Paste in Place, and there we go, center. Look how cool this looks with the transparency that we have in the drop shadow, in the black long shadow. So this is another reason why I just like using the gradient on my long shadow. And there we have it. That is the final phase basically. Okay, so check this out. I have actually got a little surprise for you. if you would like to use this. So I've just reopened our original template. So what I've done is I have created an action that could create the long shadow for you. Okay, just to save you a few steps. And what I'm going to do is, if you go to my website, ptkpicturesque.com, and you look at the actual tutorial, I'll leave the link in the description. You can actually download the action from there. It's totally free. You can download this action for free. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, let's just take that first step, because we still want our white text at the end of the day, right? So I'm going to right click the first layer and just say duplicate layer, click OK. Hide that for a second, or actually, you know what, leave it on. We're going to go to the initial text. I'm going to go up to my actions. In PsykoTroniK Picturesque action set, I'm going to select PP long shadow, and I'm going to click play. And there you have it. Unfortunately, I tried to do grouping and things like that as well with the action, but of course that doesn't work. There's no way for the action to know what layers you've clicked, etc., etc. So check this out. I'm going to select both of those two. I'm going to Control G. Let's say this is long shadow. And then we're going to make our layer mask. We're going to select our gradient tool. I will zoom out just a tad. Let's make our gradient. And there we go. We're basically back to where we were. That's it, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please drop me a comment. I'd like to know what you think. I would like to hear more from you. Also, please drop me a like. Please hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.